Why is it that we grind at our jobs so hard and play so little? The limited time off that we earn is a valuable resource that we hoard away for the things in life that we like most. PTO is all about the hobbies we do with our time off and what they do for us. Who knows? You might even find a new thing to try with your PTO. Or a sick day. Just don't tell the boss when it's a sick day. Welcome to the Paid Time Outdoors podcast.
Shout out through roll-ups. You helped me climb that Whitney.
You French fried when you should have pizza.
And I had a bad time.
Today's guest is a man I've known since our college days. A guy that once pulled me out of a rugby dog pile by my ankles, back when we used to call him Toto in the day. But now he works administration for an outdoor science school out west. And he lives a place where most people have only seen as a screensaver. But he's also doing some hard work as an educator admin. So today we're going to trace his path from rugby, from his previous jobs, all the way to the mountain peaks, and find out what a guy who lives in paradise does with his paid time off. So welcome. Thanks for coming on to the show, Alex.
Hey, thank you, Marcus. It is really awesome to see you, brother.
I'm so happy to have you on. Do people call you Toto out there still, or are you Alex?
I have a lot of names. That's the name that I don't. It's been a long time since that has been around. Usually it's Alex, Kansas. There was a school that I worked at where we had a name that was like involved with a thing in the outdoors. So for a few years, my nature name was Tundra. Sometimes there's going to be a little bit of speech thing going on, and that's just going to be the way to go.
No worries, man. So I worked at an outdoor science school north of you for like a season, and it was like the fall, winter, which there is just rain season. And my name there was Coyote.
Coyote.
Yeah.
Fly. Sometimes there is a few tricks played with the coyotes.
Well, my reasoning behind it is that the coyote is an adaptive creature that lives in 49 of the 50 states. And the only reason it's not in 50 is because it can't swim that far.
True.
So as an adaptive educator, as a wild animal predator and adaptability, coyote chose me.
Yes, sir. I like it a lot.
So why were you Tundra?
Good question. I was kind of like, I love Wisconsin. It's a small a small nod to the Packers, right? Like the frozen tundra. I also really love going way up north to Juneau, Alaska, even though there's not quite any frozen stuff down there besides all these ice fields and stuff like that. I just thought that would be a very strong name. And so it was sometimes Alex, sometimes Big Tuna. There's just like a lot of words being thrown around about me.
I'm also an environmental educator, much like you, so I appreciate all the work that you're doing and
Of
helping
course.
kids. So I'm hoping through our interview today, we can talk about some of those really funny stories, a couple of instances. I have a couple too that I plan on sharing with you. But if you
Excellent.
can think back to college, do you remember when you pulled me out of the bottom of a collapsed scrum by my ankles?
Not really. I mean, there was so many scrums. Well, it's weird because I'm usually like pretty mild mannered, but when it was time to play rugby, there's just this just like a giant switch in my brain that just went from like I'm pretty mellow to like it's time to go.
And I remember we were at a St. Cloud tournament up in Minnesota, and I had like just started playing. It was like my first season, I think, and the scrum collapsed. So basically, it's this giant dog pile on top of me, and the air is getting crushed out of me. And all I had sticking out was my feet. And for some reason, somebody, Big Tuna, grabbed me by my ankle, pulled me out, and I could breathe again. So thanks again for saving my ass when I was getting crushed, buddy.
Yes, sir. That's what we do. We're boys. If you're hurt, we're gonna
Hurt?
grab you and we're just gonna yank you right out.
Awesome. All right, so let's go to your career timelines. What was kind of the first job that you had, whether it's in your field or the first job that you can remember having?
My first job that I ever had was I was 14, lived down in Kansas City, and I worked as a busboy. And so
Nice.
I worked as a busboy for probably until I was 18. That's how I was able to I was able to have money to buy my first car. There was a lot of shifts where I would work until 2 o'clock in the morning, but it was awesome.
You're a young man, you're working hard. What was it like working a job then? Did you hate it? Did you like it? Did you work with some cool folks? Did you work with some people that you hated?
There was definitely times where I didn't want to go to work, but I was like, I know that I need to make this money. I have gas to pay for. There's all these things that are like, if I don't go to work, I'm not going to be able to have fun.
Mm.
So there was definitely times where I didn't want to go to work, but I think for the most part, I really loved all the people that were like back in the kitchen. There was the folks who were back in the back office. They were always like incredibly kind to me, and it was just kind of like a really fun place to work. There would be times where it's like midnight and the music's just pumping loud, and I'm out there, I got like 18 glasses in one hand, I'm walking them back to the kitchen, and that seems really dumb now, but at the time I was like, I can get 18 glasses, dude, I'm a badass.
So you're working as a busboy down in Kansas City. Somehow you made a pilgrimage up north to Wisconsin. Do your folks still live up there?
Yes, so my mom now lives up there. I left when I was done with high school. I was like, I'm either gonna go to Wisconsin for college, or I'm gonna go here to Kansas State. And so one year for Thanksgiving, me and my mom drove up. We had Thanksgiving, and then we drove about 2 hours to Point, and it was all snowy, and I was kind of like, this is the place to go. So I was there for a year, and then my mom left where I was from in Kansas to go up to Wisconsin. My mom lived up there when she was a kid, and then when she was about 19 to 25, somewhere in there, she was like, "I'm leaving Wisconsin." So it was kind of a way for me to go back to her roots, and then eventually for her to come back home. And so yeah, my mom is still around there. I was just home there over break for Christmas, so I was there from about December 14th until January 3rd, which is really nice. And pretty much every June, July, it's time to go back home to Wisconsin because it's way too hot out here.
That's not something we're struggling with right now. Right now in Southeast Iowa, this last week has been miserable with the wind chill. The warmest it's been is today. It's 25 degrees before the wind chill, but last week was the minus 30s, minus almost 40. It was just god awful. But Wisconsin gets that way too.
Yep. I I do love the cold. Like right now, it's like 50 degrees out here, which I think is too warm. I love going home, and when you step outside, take a deep breath through your nostrils, and all the little hairs in your nose freeze together. I don't know. For me, that feels so good. But it's kind of a weird feeling. I'm just like, yeah, I'm home. The air's fresh, the air's clean, and when it's that cold, there's a lot of ice for ice fishing, which I really love to do.
Yeah, buddy. So you're up there, moved to Wisconsin. You then went to Point. What were you studying in
hmm
school?
I first started in wildlife. I did that for about a year and a semester, and then when I learned that you should probably go back to school for a master's and then go back to get your doctorate, I was like, that doesn't really sound like it's for me. So I switched over to geography, and I actually really love geography. There was a few classes that I took, like geomorphology, which I really loved. We were able to go out, and we found like there's a big stream, and we all put on waders, and it was just really cool to like map the bottom of this like river in Wisconsin. Even though I didn't exactly do anything with my degree in geography, I think it was a very good base for me to do what I do now.
And especially that kinda shows in where you ended up. Spoiler alert, Toto heads west. And so liking geology so much, this totally makes sense. Studying natural resources, ecology is important. It sounds like it's just like building up for the big pilgrimage, if you will, out west. I mean, you like rocks. You went to where
I like rocks.
I like turtles. So you're there, you graduated. Did you stick around Wisconsin a while before you moved out west, or where'd you go after you graduated?
Well, before I was actually done, so I did it in 4.5 years. Before I was actually done for that last from August till December, I went out to Salt Lake City. I had a friend who was actually from Wisconsin who was out there, and he was being a field guide with at-risk youth. And so he was like, "You're gonna love it. You should come on out." And so I went out, and I did really enjoy it. I worked for 8 days on, and then I was off for six. And because you work a long time and then you only off for 6 days, I didn't want to pay to like have a house. And so I just had a car and I lived in the back of my car for like 3 summers, which was really cool. There was some really, really beautiful times out there. There was times where I learned a lot about myself. We were able to, at the end of every evening, to have a time where we all came together as guides, and we had 3 things that we did really well and then 3 things that were not so well. And so that was really cool to be able to just have a space and time just to be really honest with myself and to be honest with my guides. And that way, like, if I did fuck up, if I did make a mistake, they're there to say, hey, you know what? I think that that wasn't that good, and now we're gonna figure out a way to grow from that, which was awesome. Yeah. So I was out there for a summer. I went back to college because I really wanted to play one more semester of rugby.
Yeah, but
And then I was done in December, and then I had about 6 months to figure out what I was going to do next before I go back out west. And so I worked at a place where I was able to drive around a forklift for a big warehouse for beer. And so that was really cool to work 4 10s. And so I would be there from maybe 1 o'clock until whenever I was done, just driving around the warehouse, grabbing beer and throwing it on pallets. So that was good. And then I went out west for the summer. And then after the second summer, because there, if I wanted to stay there all year round, that was a option. But I was kind of like, I don't really know how I want to spend, December, January, where it's negative 25 degrees, and I don't actually have a tent. I have to build a tent from a tarp,
like,
and it was really hard. There was times where I would have a kid. He would take a full water bottle. He was pissed off at me. He would just throw it at my face. There were times where these kids did not want to be there, and I totally get it. And at about 11 o'clock at night, they would decide to just like, oh, I'm out of here and start running through the middle of the desert. So then, like, my job is, to go after them and find them, which it's really hard because when you see them really like they're crying, they don't want to be here, that just really hurts, and that they would do basically whatever just to leave. That's like a really that was the thing that was kind of like, man, like this is a really challenging line of work, even though there were times where for those kids it made a huge difference in their life. Like either they were doing a bunch of drugs back at home and then they were like, nope, it's time to go off to wilderness therapy. Yeah, there was some really beautiful times out west and some really challenging times. So basically I was there for 2 summers. I came back home to Wisconsin. So in Wisconsin, instead of having like outdoor schools, a lot of them have a school forest. And so I went up to a place just north of Wausau.
I didn't know that we were studying the same kind of stuff. I was also working with youth. Some were troubled, some weren't. So I went back to Point and got my master's degree. So I ended up founding a program and I went through it. And I remember we took like 14 kids on this trip, and they were from inner city Milwaukee. The whole ride there, we're like, making sure that they're not fighting each other in the back of the 15 passenger van and doing anything they can to get reaction and attention, really. And so we get out there and we're staying, I think it was called Wildcat Mountain. And we stayed in a campground, inner city kids. Finally, we set our camps up, tents, fire, whatever. Sun goes down, and we go out to this field. And these kids who are just like fighting all day are silent when the stars came out. Never had been in the outdoors at all. Never, seen what the stars look like. And one of the kids turned to me and he says, "How did you do that?" "How did I do what?" He goes, "How did you turn those lights on?" And it's kinda one of those, like, moments. "You mean the stars?" It's one of those
Yeah.
things we take for granted. "Yeah, how did you do that?" And they were serious. They weren't kidding with me or anything. They were, it was like a life-changing thing. Dude, I need to get out of my own head of things that we take for granted, and it was a super meaningful trip. We rode bikes on the Elroy Sparta Trail for a day. We
Oh,
paddled, this big creek, and we camped out, and it was an awesome experience. And that's one of the trips that really hooked me into environmental education, and I didn't know that you and I were kind of doing some of the same stuff at the same time until
yeah,
later in life.
definitely.
We connected at our friend's wedding about it, and was like, "No way, you're doing that too?" Yeah. Um, alright, Alex, Big Al, what got you excited or what triggered you to go out west?
Um, that's a good question. I really love Wisconsin. I love the farm fields. I love the forest. I love the lakes. But I think it was mostly that guy, my best friend in college, Joshua. He was like, "You should come out west. you should come to this program where I'm at right now. You're really gonna love it. You're really gonna dig it." And it's kind of funny because I only knew Joshua for about a year, but I was like, "This is such an amazing man. We have such an amazing, like he gets me." And
Mhm.
so if Joshua thinks that I'm gonna do well out west, I'm gonna go out west. I just kind of went out there and I saw the mountains and I saw just how vast it is. You can look at from the base of a mountain to the peak, and that doesn't look that bad. And then 5 hours later, you're only like a quarter of the way up that mountain, and you just realize that this landscape is just absolutely ginormous.
Mm.
And you can give it your all, and it can still just totally crush you. And I think that for me was a really cool thing to know. Hey, I used to think that I could do anything in the world, and now I still can, but I need to be able to think about what happens if I don't make it all the way up, and I need to have a plan if I have to bail and things like that. I owe it all to my very good friend Joshua Wilson. Yeah, he pretty much was the man to say go west, man, and
Tryna
that's what we did.
Yeah, my cousin is out west, guides climbs.
Oh, sick.
He's south of you, he's in Southern California, but he loves it. He's like, "Oh, we did a couple trips where we camped off the cliffside and then woke up in the morning and continued on," and to me, that just seems incredible.
Yeah, it's a really gnarly experience. But when I first went west is where it was like, I think I want to go rock climbing. And so I learned all the ropes, I bought all the gear, and then maybe 6, 7 years later, I was able to go and climb some really huge mountains. So I climbed a route called Snake Dike, which goes up the backside of Half Dome. And so that was like a 2,000-foot climb from the base to get to the top, and that was pretty gnarly. And then after I did Half Dome, I felt on top of the world, and so I made plans to climb the tallest mountain in the continental United States, Mount Whitney, and I was able to do that with 3 other buddies, probably about 4 years ago, and that was a trip. That was a trip, man.
What's the training for something like that like?
Well, I should have done a lot more training, to be honest with you. I spent all summer back home in Wisconsin drinking beers and going fishing. I eating cheese. I went from about 200, 300 feet back home in Wisconsin to the base of Mount Whitney, which was like 12,000, and it kicked my ass.
I hear about a bunch of dudes who do Western hunt, either muleys or high elevation, elk or, sheep, and there's no prep you can do for elevation. Once you hit that 10,000, there's just something that just knocks the life out of you. There's nothing you can do to prepare for it.
Yeah, there's definitely been times where I felt super sick from being way too high. I was halfway up this rock climb, and I puked. I couldn't keep anything down. I ate a fruit roll up, and it just gave me like an instant little rush. And I was like, I could do it. And I like climbed like another 3 pitches, and then I'm feeling like dog again. And then I ate another fruit roll up. So basically, shout out fruit roll ups. You helped me climb Mount Whitney.
Then, does that take you to your current position, working in admin?
Just about after my third summer in Utah, I saw that there was a job here out west in California. And so I decided to apply. The job title was naturalist intern. And so I applied and I came out. I did about a 3 hour job interview where I was able to go out with these kids, and I was able to do a on-site lesson. And then when I was about to leave, they were like, "Hey, we need to come talk in the office, and do you want this job?" And I was like, "Yes, yes, I do." So I
Awesome.
was able to come out to California. I got that job. That was in 2017. I went through that process for a year where I learned the very small things to know about when you're out on trail with kids
Yeah.
and how to take their thoughts and guide them to where you want them to be. So if they're like, "Man, this boulder's so big. All right, let's figure out how to talk about how this rock came to be where it is." And so if you add small little things about weathering and erosion, eventually you're going to guide them to realize that that rock was buried underneath the surface, and over time wind and rain eroded all that soil away, and that's why there's this big rock here. And so that was really cool to learn.
Questioning is something that we train my staff on whenever we have new hires, and I hire summer intern naturalists as well. It's like asking the questions that aren't the yes, no questions, but asking them to describe things like, "How big do you think this rock was before it was this big? Was it
Hmm.
smaller than this or bigger than this?" Some of those questions really get them thinking, and you can kinda guide them to overarching concepts. I love it. I
Yeah,
love
it was super fun. I think the best one, I was like, "All right, friends, so how do you think this rock came to be where it is right now?" One kid raised his hand, he goes, "Aliens." And I'm like, "Well, it could be aliens, but why do you think it's aliens?" Right? So it's called the three eyes. I notice, I wonder, it reminds me of. If you can use those three things with those kids, it gets their brain to think about it and process it on their own. And it's not just like this rock, it came here because all the soil on top eroded away. That's not how they're going to learn. You can't just tell them this is the way that it is. They have to be able to go through that process themselves.
And what's nice is you're out in the field, literally. You're in fields, in mountains, you're outside. So you're not just reading in a book or watching a video about what they look like, what they feel like. People get to use their senses and really learn personally what these things are like in almost paradise. And
Yeah.
in this space that you get to work, you have this really rewarding job. You're working hard. You get a little bit of time off. What does your time off, kinda look like? Are you given a day, 2 days, 3 days? What is your typical time off like?
Usually, I work from about August until May 31st or like June 5th or something like that. And the really awesome part about my job is that I have the whole months of June and July off. Pretty much when it's time to work, it's time to work, and you're go going for the entire school year.
Mhm.
And so when it's time to be off, it's time to be off. When it's time for me to work with kids, it's usually Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then I'm off on the weekend. For me, the things that I like to do that that will give me joy really kind of depends on what like is the weather. So in
Mm.
the fall, it's time to go deer hunting. And here there's it's like a month and a half long season for deer. I've been hunting in California for 6 years, and I'm ashamed to admit that I have zero bucks on the ground. Oh,
So the big question for me, and it's the big question that I ask my guests on here is, first, of course, family is priority. So making sure that, your family is doing well, your now wife is doing well. Congratulations on being married, by the way.
thank you very much, sir.
Side quest. So I met your wife. I was working a position through the university at one of the field locations, and I was working as a garden manager, and
Uh, yes,
she came on as an intern out there just as I was on my way out, so I got to work with her for maybe a couple of weeks before I moved on to my next thing. When you see her, tell her I say hello again. I doubt she'll remember me at all, but
absolutely.
there was like a there's like a brief 2 weeks where I met her, and then later in life, I was like, "Toto, he's marrying the intern that came in as I left?" World. So anyway, family is priority, and you've got a wife. Do you have any pets or kids or anything like that?
I do not, and it's because I am here at work. Like outside is my job, and so that makes it really hard to have a pet or a boy or a girl.
We're gonna pretend that there's a holiday weekend coming up, and if you use a paid time off day on a Friday, you have a 4-day weekend. Family's happy, healthy, everything's good on that end. It's that perfect time of year for your favorite thing. So, what is the big refresher that Toto does with his time off?
Marcus, that's so hard because when you say the perfect time of year, for me, I thrive in every season. So the fall is hunting. The late fall, it's time to rock climb. When it's time for winter, it's time to go snowboarding. And so right now, if I had a 4-day weekend, I'm gonna grab my wife. We're packing up the truck. We're throwing the snowboards in the back, and we're cruising all the way up to go snowboarding in Lake Tahoe. And
Awesome.
that to me is just such an escape because it's really hard to not only live where you work. And for me, when it's the weekend, I'm out of here. I need to go refresh. I have to find my own space where it's like, it's time to be me. I don't have to be the nighttime principal and
Right.
just go out and have fun. So right now we're packing up the truck, we're throwing the snowboards in the back, and we're going to Lake Tahoe, and we're hoping for a big dumper. And if we don't get a big dumper, we're still gonna go skiing. We have about 6 friends that are up north there. And so it's nice just to hang out and have beers and go snowboarding all day. Right now, that is what I do to kind of like recharge. Um, Except about 3 weeks ago, I went off a jump and I didn't think it was a big jump. I thought there was three jumps and there was only two. And I slowed way down. I was about 10 feet in the air and I just crashed so hard. I buckled
Oh,
my knees. I smacked my face. I broke my goggles. So for the next like 2 weeks, my knees weren't feeling too good. And I'm only 32 and I was like, I feel like 60. But now I'm ready to rock.
awesome. I'm so glad that you chose snowboarding as a topic that we're gonna cover today because that's something really unique, especially to the space that you're in out west. We got some hills, right? Or when we were kids, we'd go to, like, the local park, Sunset Knoll is what it was called, where literally
Mhm.
you go down for a minute, if even, and then it's over and you go back up.
Yeah.
But where you are is a very special place. So I've heard of a challenge out in California where in the morning, you hit the slopes, and then in the afternoon, you hit the surf. Have you ever tried that challenge?
I have not tried that challenge, and I think it's because I suck at surfing.
Cold water, cold frozen water is kinda where you'd like to stick, huh?
Exactly. Yeah, the last time I went surfing was probably 10 years ago, and I did not get up, and I got trapped in a wave. And so if you ever been out in a wave and you're just getting tumbled and tumbled and tumbled, you're holding your breath and waiting for it to stop. And it's a really scary experience. I think I could hold my breath long enough, but from there on out, I was like, I'm gonna stick to not the ocean because the ocean can be a really scary place if you do not know what you're doing.
Yeah, or even if you do know what you're doing, it's a scary
Yeah.
place, really. Alright, so snowboarding, when did snowboarding start for you? When is the first time you ever clicked into bindings? Let's go off about it, buddy.
Okay. So the first time I ever snowboarded was actually at a place called Snow Creek, which is a very tiny hill outside of Kansas. And so I used to go there maybe like 2 or 3 times a year when I was younger. I was in the Boy Scouts, and so every year we would all go together with our troop. And so the first year I went, I had skis and I was doing pretty good. And we know that the Midwest things get kind of icy. Well, I started doing the splits and I did the splits bad. And I like
Oof,
threw my poles up in the air. And that was the last time I ever put skis on. So the very next year, it was like, it's time to snowboard. So
man,
I think I
so
was
you
probably like 12 or 13.
you French fried when you shoulda pizzaed.
And I had a bad time.
Down in Kansas, you had your first taste of it, and where you lived up in Wisconsin, there was also a spot to go.
Yes. I think we went together with Gertz and maybe Yunk.
Dunk was a lifty. We would grab a beer at the bottom, and then at the top, there was a garbage can, and his buddies recognized us, so we'd drink one on the way up, and then we were there for a long time. Really makes falling less painful.
Yeah,
Awesome,
I
well,
think there was like 3 times that I was up there, and I think you were there once with Gertz
sounds about
and
right.
Yunk.
That's a special park to me, that's where I proposed to my wife.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Granite
so that's
Peak, Rib Mountain. Let's go.
yep. Cool, so you're up there shredding the gnar on your time off. Did you have
Mhm.
any time in Utah to go out and hit the slopes there, or only California?
I've actually snowboarded in a lot of different places. When I was working in Utah, I didn't really go snowboarding much because it was mostly May, June, July, August for those months, and there's no snow because it's warm. When I came to California, I was able to go up to Tahoe, and it's gonna be my 10th year going on a boys ski trip with three of my boys from college. The very first year that we were doing it, they were able to come out to California. I drove up from my house to Sacramento, and then we drove from Sacramento over to South Lake Tahoe. Well, that night they got 8 feet of snow, and
Oh my
it's supposed to take you 2 hours to drive from Sacramento to South Lake. It took us 9, and
oh,
it was insane. We snowboarded in Tahoe one year, we went to Mammoth a year, we went to Park City for a year, we went to Brighton. I've got to go up to BC, and we skied at Whistler for, like, 5 days or something like that. I think my dream is to go over to Japan, which would be pretty cool. So,
nice.
yeah, I've skied, like, 15 mountains or something like that, which is a lot for me, but for some people that's nothing.
That's awesome. It's funny how people with the same disciplines kinda connect on things. I was working out in Oregon. My boss, his name was Doctor Earth. That was his,
Dr.
uh,
Earth?
name out there, Doctor.
Sick.
He have a doctorate, but he made sure everyone was taken care of. Kind of work we do in a lot of times is a seasonal position where you're there for a few months and you move on. So he kind of had it lined up where he would work out in Portland for however the amount of time was we were there. And then his other job, we'd go to Utah for the Sundance Film Festival. That's what it is. The film festival. He would help put on the festival, and then he would just ski his brains out when he was there too. Do you have a funny story about something that happened when you were skiing, maybe on one of your boys' trips? You ever encounter something ridiculous, like a squatch up in the
Um,
mountains?
I, I got a buddy Keith, and he was gonna get married that June, and so he got all of his boys together. We went up to South Lake Tahoe, and these are like a bunch of guys from back east in Boston and Jersey, and I'm this boy from like the Midwest, and I didn't really understand their banter. They'd be like, "No, fuck you, no, fuck you, no, you're a fuck cocksucker," like they're going back and forth, and I'm like, "Dude, I thought we're friends. Like, why are people yelling at each other?" And then they're just like, "Dude, this is just the way we talk to each other. We actually really, really do love each other." That weekend, a big storm came through Tahoe. We all went to a mountain, and it was awesome because there was about 2 feet of fresh snow, and they there's like two sides of the mountain. There's the front side, and then you come up and over, and then the back side. Well, the back side didn't have any tracks on it. It was totally pristine powder. I think we were like chair number 10 or chair number 12, and we were coming up, and his buddy was actually on the first chair, so his buddy was coming down mountain as we were coming up, and there was this super cool video that he had. It was a 360 camera, and he's just coming underneath the lift, and all the boys are like, "Yeah!" And that same day I was riding on my brand new board. I was so stoked to have a brand new board. We were way out, and there was some chutes and some cliffs. All right, boys, follow me. And so I'm cruising, and then all of a sudden, I didn't know that there's a cliff right there. And so I skirt on some rocks and then almost fall off the cliff. And I'm like, "Don't follow me. Don't follow me." So we get down to the bottom, and I got to check out my board. This is my baby. I just got it. I'm so stoked. I put like a 4-inch gash in the
Oh,
bottom of my brand new snowboard. It was just like, you just got to keep going. Yeah, it really sucks. But I mean, it's kind of funny. Yeah, guys, follow me. And then I just totally wreck myself. But sometimes when I'm on the chairlift, I've had a couple beers. I like to heckle people. My wife hates it, but I'm just kind of, I just like to heckle people on the chair. It's kind of fun.
I think that's a part of our job though as husbands. Just from time to time, we have to embarrass them, and then from time to time, you have to reality check us like, "Come on, man, be
Yeah,
a good person."
big
Well,
time.
snowboarding, it's a big passion of yours now. Was it tough to get into snowboarding? Was there a big learning curve? I'm thinking if there's someone who's never done it before, and this sounds awesome, I wanna give this a try. Where do you start?
It is awesome, and you should try it, but the first day you do it, it's gonna suck. Like, the first 2, 3 times that I did it by myself, I was like, "I'm not buying a lesson, I'm just gonna learn." Well, I ended up on my ass 90% of the day, and your knees are black and blue, because it's not like skis where you have 2 boards to kinda be on top of, you're just on 1 solid platform. And it's really easy to be going and you think you got it, and then all of a sudden you lean just a little bit one direction, and then you catch your edge, and you just like flip like right onto your face, or you catch your back edge and you get thrown backwards. Yeah, so definitely wear a helmet. I would say you should have a really good friend to help you learn, or you should lesson, because otherwise you're gonna not be having a fun time, and you might just say, "I don't want to do this anymore."
That could prevent you from falling off the cliff too,
Yeah,
really.
it could. It could. It really could.
Just going to send it, "Oh, I'm just gonna try this, just go full tilt." Maybe you shouldn't do that right away. Is there, like, shit given to somebody who's a grown-up who's hitting the bunny hill first? If you were to go out with one of your buddies and they were like, "I need to learn on the bunny hill before we hit the black diamonds," what kind of, what kind of banter goes on there?
For me, it's not a whole lot, because if they are just like, "I want to learn," I am going to drop everything and be like, "How can I help you?" But I would say don't start on a really slow slope, especially when you're on a board. It's actually a little easier to have a little bit more slope. It kind of helps you bend your knees and kind of be fun with your turns and your board. Don't go to the flat, even though it looks a little more mellow. Go to something a little bit more steep because that's actually going to help you learn exactly where your legs need to be.
I think that there's also a chain between your brain and your body, and if you're on a slower, less steep hill, you're like, "Oh, I should probably turn to slow down," where if you're on something a little steeper, "If I don't do this now, I'm in trouble," even though it's
Yeah,
not, as steep as, a dangerous steep, but
yeah.
I think that sometimes your brain takes over, and then once you do it a little bit. I've only been snowboarding a handful of times, and I had a blast doing it when we went. That's a really fun time. How long before you started hitting jumps?
When I was younger, I was just like, I'm just gonna do it. And I would probably always fall, which is fine. And then as I got a little bit older, I like doing two, three, four, maybe like 1 to 3 foot jump because it's all about speed. And if you have way too much speed, you're gonna go way too far, and then you're gonna land flat. And if you don't have enough speed, you're gonna come and land flat anyways. I mean, for me, I don't do a bunch of jumps if it's like, hey, we're gonna go to the park. No, but I'm not gonna hit rails and stuff. I just kind of like doing things that are a little bit more mellow
Mhm.
because I think I've learned the hard way of going too fast, too quick.
Does your wife like to snowboard a lot too?
She does like to snowboard. I think her first year ever was 4 years ago, and it was kind of fun. But I was like, all right, we're gonna get you a board, bindings, boots. We got all that stuff. And then for me, it was really helpful because it was basically like I was her instructor.
Mhm.
And for me, it was really cool to like watch her go through that process. But it was also nice that she was like, okay, thank you for the advice. Now go on these 4 runs and have fun while I practice on this. And so it was cool to be able to be like, I'm going to be here to help you. But sometimes you're saying the same thing 10 times. And you know what, sweetheart, go have fun. I'm just going to practice. And I think that was a really good balance
Yeah.
of I love you. I would like to help you. But right now I'm being too much. So I'm going to go away.
Yeah. As a husband, I totally have similar experiences. This year, my wife, Katie, was going to try deer hunting for the first time. Season 2025. Leading to the season, a lot of things happened. So those of you who don't know, my wife Katie had a heart transplant in 2022. And after she had her heart transplant, some time went by. We tried to reach out to the family she received her heart from, and you can send a letter to the hospital, and then they send it to this other place, and then it goes to the family. It's kind of like a long process to get it to them. So she wrote a thank you letter for the gift of life. Eventually, the letter made it to them, and there's never a good time to send a letter to somebody that's like, "Thank you for your child's organ. I can now live a fulfilling life because they gave up the ultimate gift." Some time went on, and I was actually up in the deer stand 2 falls ago, and Katie sends me this picture, and the picture is Matthew, her heart donor, in blaze orange with a book, and I send Katie I'm crying in the deer stand, I'm just coming home now. So there aren't a lot of hunters out there in the world, let alone archery hunters. He was an archery hunter, close to here, and it's just him with a big buck. The dude loved his dogs, but unfortunately, he had death by suicide. On his worst day, Katie had her best day. It's a really weird thing to tangle with. But
Yeah.
uh, long story short, so we get these pictures of Matthew with these deer. This is a sign. You're gonna deer hunt, honey. This is it. And she was all for it. She took the hunter safety course, and just like you teaching Emily about snowboarding, it's the biggest passion that you have, and you're trying to not be too much, not, to be just enough and guide along the way. So took hunter safety course, she passed. Then next thing you know, I bought a rifle for her to use, a really nice one, and then got her a jacket, and then this and then that. Well, one of the complications with her health is she has almost no immune system because you don't want her body to reject her organ.
Hmm.
So she gets sick really easy. So what happened was it was like the day, 2 days before her season for deer hunting started, and she was being awarded for the Survivor of the Year with the American Heart Association here in Iowa. And it was this big event. Lots of people were there, a big deal. Couple hundred people were there. She gave a speech on stage, crushed it. She's the best. Naturally, when you're surrounded by a lot of people, you can get sick. That's what happened. So she got a cold, and what would for us would be like 2 or 3 days of sniffles turned into 3.5 weeks for her.
Oof.
And that 3.5 weeks was the deer season that we had planned for her to hunt, so it just didn't get to happen this year. I was like, "Okay, we'll get out there. I got a blind set for you. I bought a Mr. Buddy Heat, all the preparation," and she's like, "Okay, you need to chill. You go for a while. I need to do
Yeah.
my." So
That's
I can I can kinda relate to what you're saying. Yeah, it's fun how the passions that we have for things are so concentrated, and then when our partner in life shows some interest, we're like, "Okay, yep,
we're all in. We're like, "Come on, let's go."
yeah." So have you guys taken a trip to go snowboarding that is just the 2 of you, or do you always go with, like, a group of people?
We have not gone to, like, things more than, like, 3 hours away from here.
Mhm.
It depends on what is going on. So it might be Saturday, we have a game night, but then the very next morning we're waking up at 5, we're going together way up north to go skiing. And sometimes it's just us, and sometimes it's a few friends, and sometimes it's a huge group. It really kind of just depends. And so it's super cool for me to have her be like, "All right, like I'm gonna do this groomer, you go do that double black, and then we're just gonna meet at the bottom." And then sometimes it's just like really cool to just cruise together. There's a very good balance there.
Let's say that you've gone on your trip you planned, your boys' trip, or you went out with Emily snowboarding, and it's time to go back to work after you spent your time off. Like, what does the trip do for you? I mean, I know we said that it kind of resets you, but, like, what does that really mean? Preparing to go to work on that Tuesday, let's say you got Monday off, how are you feeling before you're going back?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think sometimes I'm not ready for this to be done. And sometimes it's like, all right, well, I was able to go out and I had my fun and now I'm gonna give it all this week. And then when the weekend comes, I'm gonna do it all over again. It's kind of weird for me because every week is not the same at work because every week I have a brand new batch of students. This week I have 130 kids from this these these two schools, and next week it's going to be 160 kids from four schools. Every week is a little bit different, and that's also nice to be able to go out, refresh, and then be able to come back. But there's definitely some weeks where I go out, I had a blast of a weekend, I'm not ready for it to be done, and I know that this next school that I'm going to have might be really challenging. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I wonder if I can just get snowed in here for a couple days.
If teacher burnout's real, I've worked summer camps for quite a few summers. I've hired on some staff during our busy season or field trip season. We're having 60 folks come through for a whole week per day. It gets pretty crazy, and being an admin side, I'm sure it's important to you that the people you're working with are also spending their time the way that they need to. In a second, I can see when one of the staff that I'm working with is burnt out. Maybe for the weekend, instead of taking their snowboarding trip, they had to get their car fixed, and then the things pile up that they're missing around the house. Monday comes around, a new batch of kids comes, and they're just fried. And it is so tough to cope with. I recognize that everywhere. You're seeing that too?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's also kinda it's like a lot of people wanna go out and do all these really cool things. I wanna go out and if I can every single weekend, I wanna go snowboarding. I wanna go to the mountains. But there's also time where you have to take a moment to say, "I've been doing a lot lately." And sometimes just hanging out and watching a movie all day and just kinda being a bum is something that you need to help you recharge. Even though I would prefer to just ski, 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 every single weekend, there's definitely some times where I've been going too much. I know my body's tired. I know that I need to be ready to go next week. And maybe instead of going out to the mountains, the best idea is just to have a day to chill and maybe go play disc golf instead of go down the mountain all day long.
Just rot.
Yeah, I like that.
There's a saying, and I'm gonna butcher it, but it kinda goes, "If you don't take time to slow down, the universe will slow you down." I think that resonates with a lot of people, and after talking to so many folks, about how they spend their time, I think I'm starting to see a trend of that. Do you have any final notes about snowboarding or about the importance of your paid time off before I close it out with us?
Yeah, I think it's important to do what is right for you in that moment. I could be planning to go on a huge trip on Friday, on Monday, and then Thursday comes around and I'm feeling beat. I could be almost starting to get sick. I could be getting a little sniffly. And even though like a part of me really want to go on this trip, in that moment, maybe that's not the best thing to do. And so even though I want to do all these super mega awesome lines of snowboarding or these really awesome rock climbs, for me, I have to take it more of a day at a time and whatever feels best in the moment. And I also feel really bad of saying, hey, I'm going to go with these three friends and we're going to have an awesome time. And then Friday comes around and sometimes you're dreading it. Man, I am just so run down. I know that I can't perform on the mountain, but like I made this really good commitment. Yeah. And so I I have this constant struggle between let's do all these super rad awesome things and also what do I need to do for my own self and my body and the way that I feel.
And your wife too, because of
Yeah.
course she's a major part of your life, so you wanna make sure that you're on good terms. If you're working all week and you don't see her, and then the weekend comes and you're like, "I'm taking a boys trip now." I'm sure she's like, "Buddy, I miss you."
Yeah.
So that balance is something that we learn to work with too. So, Alex, thanks for joining us today. It's been wonderful reconnecting with you. It's been quite some time. Don't be a stranger. I look forward to finding out what you do with some more of your paid time off, whether you're hitting the slopes, doing some climbs, you're hitting the disc golf course, or you're just rotting on the couch, buddy. I hope that you're doing really well out west. I'll let you know how we're doing here in the Midwest. I can even send you a
Perfect.
picture of happy cows instead of the California happy cows if that interests you too. So once again, we've got Alex, Big Al, the Frozen Tundra, um, here with us with the Paid Time Outdoors podcast. We'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks, Marcus.